these three teams most certainly will be measuring sticks for us. Right now, the AFC, the Pittsburgh's the elite, you know, and then we're going to go up against San Francisco, who was the elite last year, and they're finding their way back. And then Seattle, who's one of the elite right now. So it's going to be a good test. We'll see how we handle it. We see how we handle it as a coaching staff and as players.
Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus television show here on the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. Let's welcome our co-host this week, the former chaplain of the Washington football team, Mr. Milton Harding. A man Tom Knott once called Mad Mike, the mouthpiece of NCAA maniacs, Mike Baker. Washington football team beat reporter and member of the Fairmont University women's basketball 1,000-point club, Miss Donna Hopkins. One of the most prolific pass catchers in the 20th century, and four-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl wide receiver Gary Clark. And a man who played in the NFL for 14 seasons, and one of the all-time sack leaders in the NFL, Super Bowl pass rusher Tony Mac the Sack McGee.
I'm smiling. Look at Tony McGee Pro Football Plus. We beat a team that we did not know we were going to beat. So what do? You had the Geico Midway Report, so we could talk about not just the Washington team, but all teams. So what do? You break the bank. You bring in some people that you can't afford. Now, we do have Gary Clark coming on later and Darryl Green. Those are small potatoes because we went out and we got Milt. Now, you know about Milt. He's the homer. And we got Donna. She throws everybody under the bus. Y'all know them. But what did we do? We go out to Pittsburgh because we're playing them next. We get a guy that on his own show. He called it the championship chase. He just don't know what he's going to get from the Washington team. Welcome, Ty Miller, to the show. Pete, how you doing?
What's up, man? How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good, but that's only half of my money, fans. When you look at him, you don't know I'm all the way broke. But when you go to USA Today and you get one of their sports reporters and you get the best out there, and his name is JB, we call him Jared Bell. You bring him to the show, I got to go out and get another job after this show. Welcome to the show, Jared.
All right, my man. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man. Well, I tell you what, let's get to finishing down with your piece right there. Rivera said he's looking for this team, and they're going to assess themselves, and they'll know themselves in the league relatively soon. What do you think he meant by that?
Yeah, Tony, we're at the home stretch of the football season, and the second half of these last 5 games is going to be brutal. But let's just bring up the schedule right now for the remaining games. So look, Tony, you've got the Giants at 4-7, who leads the division right now. The Washington football team is right behind. And the Eagles, they play on Monday night. Cowboys, it's amazing that the Washington football team beats the Cowboys, not by a little bit, by a bunch this year. But as you can see, Tony, the NFC East race is up for grabs. And when you look at the remainder of the season, it's some tough games for the Washington football team. They've got to travel to Pittsburgh and the 49ers, Seattle, Carolina, and Philadelphia. That's not an easy task. And you look at the Giants, Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas. And then the Eagles are right there in the chase too. Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas. And, the Cowboys are not out of it yet because anything could happen. Baltimore, Cincinnati, the 49ers, Philadelphia, and the Giants. So, Tony, when you look at all of the remaining of the schedule, it's going to be interesting in the NFC East down the stretch. So that's a little bit what Ron Rivera was talking about.
Oh, come on now. Wait a minute. Let's do the Cowboys first. Are you doing that just because we got Ty on the show? They didn't expect to beat the Cowboys. You know why their schedule is hard? Because the 4 worst teams are in their division. So you got to take a look at it. Ty, tell me what you think about your Cowboys. I mean, I know you've had the injuries, but right now, the defense is terrible. The offense, I don't like the leadership on this thing. Give me your summary since you are a Cowboy man.
Well, full disclosure, Tony. First of all, of course, I cover the Pittsburgh Steelers. I grew up in Alabama. And down in Alabama, we only had the Cowboys, the Falcons, and the Saints to watch. And if you see that star, man, you kind of mesmerized, so you become a Cowboys fan. So that's why I'm a Cowboys fan. Now, Dallas has a prayer's chance to win this division, but I highly doubt it this year. The Redskins, unfortunately, they have 3 straight losses coming up on the schedule. Just hate to break it to you guys right now. I see right now that Dallas is in the process of a team that really has to look toward next year almost, because there's no hope in terms of what they're doing with that offensive line. It really boils down to, first of all, the quarterback, then the offensive line goes down, and they have injuries all over the place. One of the glaring injuries that took place a couple of weeks ago was their defensive back, the number 1 draft choice out of Alabama, the guy whose brother plays with Buffalo now. I can't think of his name. He played for
Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, he's from Maryland, and he really hurt that secondary by going out, because that secondary had played much better with him in there, and they got a couple other guys back. But be that as it may, when you lose 2 offensive tackles, Tony, you know well this, because you made your career off backup guys. So when
I like that. That was the best. He dropped that in right on y'all. In other words, I only played when the game was won or lost.
So when
wait a minute, Jared, tell me what you think about it. They were laughing a few weeks ago when I said that the Giants may win this division.
Yeah, when you guys put that graphic up and had all of the games against all the teams for these 4 teams, I saw 1 win that's guaranteed for any of those teams, and that was Dallas against Cincinnati, and even that's not guaranteed, as Todd just pointed out the Cowboys issues. So this division is going to be determined between the divisional games, really. When Philly plays the Giants plays Washington, Dallas plays Philly. And so I don't know how that's going to go, except to say you look at who's playing the best football at any given time, and there's still a month to go. And looking at it in that regard, I think Washington and the Giants are the 2 teams right now that you say are, a cut above Dallas and Philly. Now that could change tomorrow, right? But it's so even. But I think that's where it comes down to, because, you look at Washington's schedule, for example, and Todd was saying, hey, they got to play Pittsburgh. The 49ers, as they just showed against the Rams, are not going to be an easy game, regardless of what their record says, because they're getting healthier. And, and Kyle Shanahan playing Washington, you think he wants to lose that game? So it's going to be dramatic one way or another. And I'm wondering now, how many wins is it going to take to win this division? Right. 6 would be great. I don't know. Does anybody see 6?
I'm 5.5. They're going to tie one.
Because we've never been here before, so that defies it. We've never been at this level before, so that it's hard to imagine a 6-win season takes down a division. Yeah. But I think just from what I'm seeing and being a homer, I see the Giants progressing in their defensive end, and I think the one who wins this division will win it from a defensive standpoint more so than an offense. That's just my perspective. And,
it's Washington, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the one that wins the division will win it on defense, and I think Washington has maybe a cut above offensively right now than maybe the Giants. But we'll see. I mean, that's hard to imagine that 6 wins would win a division for them.
But it's going to take some offensive play too, because when you look at the Washington football team schedule, they've got Pittsburgh, who hasn't lost a game yet. They've got Seattle coming in here. They've got the 49ers that they have to face. And then at the end of the stretch, so all of their games is tough, but they need some offensive play in there too. Now, if they don't have that running game going like they have in the last 2 games, that's going to be a problem facing some of these tough defensive teams that they've got coming up.
True.
Yeah, but don't you look at it, and I'm looking at the other end of that spectrum, and I want to holler at you with this tie because we were talking about the other day. When I look at this Pittsburgh team, and one thing I do see there is the opportunity that they are a very fast team. Sideline to sideline, they're excellent. But when people pump them up in the middle and they're going after the middle linebackers and making those strong safeties be real strong safeties and little linebacker within, they seem to have a problem. So if you look at this Washington team, the last couple of weeks, they have developed a piece of a running game, not a great one, but at the same time, if that running game is strong, could that give Pittsburgh a little problem?
I honestly don't think so, because one of the strengths of the Pittsburgh defense is their front seven. And yes, it's very hard to run sideline to sideline or even in the middle on this defense. One of the main reasons is because Stephon Diggs, who missed most of last season with a pec injury, he's back this year. He's kind of stuffed that middle along with Cam Hayward. So Washington's going to have a difficult time doing what they did the last couple of weeks against this Pittsburgh defense. Now, one of the things in their favor is the Steelers have played, and I don't know if a lot of people look at this, they have played some backup quarterbacks along the way, but they won those games, but they didn't really have a hard time. Alex Smith is an experienced guy, and if he can get some guys out on the edge throwing some swing passes to them, that may cause some problems for the Pittsburgh defense. But I can tell you right now, it's going to be very hard for them to run on that defense this week.
Jared, you got to agree with that. You feel like it's going to be very hard for the Washington team to run, but at the same time, you've watched this team for years. Do you actually see, and I got a couple of questions that I have to ask, and one of them is from the climate of this Washington team. Do you see a change in it, going more towards winning, going more towards discipline, going more towards getting the running game back involved?
Yeah, I see some things that you can look at and say you've got something to build on. And I think back to Ron Rivera talking, a couple months ago about being in the race when he made the switch at quarterback and everybody laughed at him and said, yeah, right. You think you can still win this thing. And so there's that. The one thing that I loved about watching the Thanksgiving game was Terry McLaughlin and seeing him chase down Jalen Smith. And then that turned out to just, turn into a field goal for the Cowboys when it should have been a pick six. Right. I mean, that was really something when you talk about a special player. So, and the defense, the defensive line, all of that, there are things that you can look at. But again, I'm looking at it on two tracks. I'm looking at it on the track when you play the Steelers, the 49ers, Seattle, those are L's, those are losses, right? And if they
for
can
the mortgage payment,
Hey, Tony,
for the mortgage payment, those are losses.
Yeah.
Tony, Jared didn't give him a chance. He said those are 3 L's.
Right, Jared, come on, man. We know that Milton is a homer, but you don't have to just be a away guy.
No, I'm just saying it's going to come down to how they match up against the Giants, the Eagles. We saw what happened with the Cowboys, and that's really going to be it. So. I think about the Giants, and we were talking a minute ago about them. Their offense is actually playing better now than it has. I mean, they've got, Jason Garrett's the coordinator, and they've had, a bunch of issues, obviously losing Saquon Barkley. But the past month, they've actually found a little bit of confidence, if you will.
But there's a problem now.
Washington's got the defense, and Washington's got the experienced quarterback, and a better offensive line than every other team in the division too. So that's why I think Washington is in a spot that, they could do it with respect to, if it's going to take 5 wins to do it. Can they get those 5 wins, and what can they do in these division games?
But technically, when you look at it, it may take 5 more wins. And Ty, I know you want to get in this. We got about 30 seconds left. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about this Pittsburgh team. And one question I have to ask you, Ty, is Big Ben really the big difference, or have they improved as much as they seem to have improved at every position? When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that. And if personnel don't start talking about Washington winning, we may have some new personnel in a couple of these seats up here.
After the commercial.
Welcome back. And when we left out, we were looking at changing personnel. We're just like the Washington football team. We know that we can't have people there that don't want to look at the future. And one guy talking about we got 3 losses. And I thought this guy was one of the guys on the show, helped start the show. Then another guy come from Pittsburgh because his little team is winning a little bit. He thinks that they are so great. Well, Ty, you tell me why Washington cannot beat Pittsburgh.
Well, primarily because of that quarterback that the Steelers have, Ben Roethlisberger. You look at last season, they were 8-8, and they did that with backups, with bums at the quarterback position. You had Mason Rudolph, who, well, he played because I think he's a 3rd-round draft pick, so you have to play the money. But they also had Duck Hodges, a guy they got from Stanford in Alabama, played. He helped them win a couple of games. Ben comes back. He's playing. It's like a guy coming back and also just seeing like, man, look, there's a lot of candy in the store. I have Juju Smith-Schuster. I have Deontay Johnson. I have, they gave me a new shiny card, Chase Claypool. And what? There's no Antonio Brown. So there's no headache on this team at the wide receiver position. So he's just throwing darts and dimes all the way around, man. He made this team a much better team and put them in position to win the Super Bowl.
Hey, Ty, I told Tony them weeks ago, the last couple of weeks, that
Here we go.
Goes after, how goes Big Ben, since he's back, goes that team, and he makes the difference. I told him that they were kicking on all cylinders as far as from the offensive line. The defensive line is just brutal, but Big Ben has made that team go. I tried to educate them before you came on, but they wouldn't.
Let me add some administrative thoughts here just for the moment, just so we can nurse on them a bit. Donna, you ought to stop. All right, so Ty, let me ask you this. It is known history. Now Big Ben's, he's a winner. You give him that. He has a history of holding the ball a tad longer than most. I'll put it like that. And as that lines up and matches up against the defensive front of a Washington football team, I think that could be worth a look. Now, he is also prone to injury. That's just one thought. And the other thought is, I think, is it Connor just went on COVID-19 list. I don't know if he's back yet. He may, who knows when we play the game. But their running game I think it falls off a little bit when Connor's not in that starting role. So I'm just saying, is it a slam dunk as your wisdom intimates?
No. I think, first of all, Washington's defense will give Pittsburgh's offense one of the toughest tests they've had all season.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things that the Steelers have done offensively with Big Ben, now he does hold on to the ball a tad longer because he has that Cam Newton syndrome where these guys are big and strong at 6'5", so they feel they can take a hit.
Invincible, yeah.
In the pocket. But if you watch the Steelers closely, this year, there's a lot of 1, 2, 3 pop. That ball comes out quickly this year. A lot of timing patterns. And that's when Pittsburgh's offense, the passing game's at its best. So far as the running game's concerned, they have had a hard time trying to get that thing on track this year. And one of the reasons maybe is because the other Watt, Derek Watt, has not played a whole lot this season. He's a fullback for the Steelers. So he's been injured. Last season, they had Roosevelt Nix, another fullback, and he was very productive in blocking in front of James Conner or whomever they had running back position. So, but what they have gone to me personally, they look a little bit like the Tom Brady-like Patriots, where the passing game has become the running game.
The running game, okay.
And I think they know for a fact with this Washington, first round defensive line, they have to have that ball come out quick, and that's what you'll see against Washington this week.
Yeah, the tight ends. Let me just jump in here, because I think that's a great point. Because when I look at the Steelers, yeah, they might be the most balanced team in the NFL because of what's happened on defense, and like you said, 8-8 last year with backup quarterbacks. Ben kind of gives them that stability, because the thing about the Steelers that I also like is the fact they're a veteran team. Even though they've got a lot of young players, they've got veteran presence and poise. You look at that Baltimore game, for example, a few weeks ago, where they almost lost it, or they were set up to lose, and they kind of kept their composure. So they've got it in their DNA. Mike Tomlin has a lot to do with that. But if there is one thing about the Steelers I wonder about, Ty, you hit on it. It's the consistency of the running game. Even when Connor is there, it's not always consistent. Now they've been able to incorporate some other guys, Benny Snell being one. Where sometimes they'll be kind of resourceful and use what they can. But that running game is not championship proven, if you will. They lost a lot since, the days of Le'Veon Bell, and that might come back to bite them because I still think in the AFC, it's going to come down to Pittsburgh and Kansas City. And
see, this is where I'm thinking, and I know we've kind of pointed out the things that are wrong with the Washington team, but it looks as if matchups could work in their favor. Number one, as you said, that running game hasn't been the same since they've changed running backs up in Pittsburgh. Number two, that wide receiver core is not the wide receiver core that caught 200 or 300 passes in a couple of years for them. It's a new receiver core that really doesn't have that number one receiver that stands up every week. Number three, Big Ben, and you know what? You can tell that Milton is a minister because he did all praying things. He fought in the coronavirus. He bought in if he gets hurt. He holds the ball. Everything is godly. But at the same time, you can start looking at them manly. They do have some flaws, and they have some things going on. I don't think their offensive line is as strong as it's been in the past. And without Watts on there, that defense would not be nothing about as close as what it is. Yes, they have a lot of players, but their players are built for speed. Now, I want to ask you this, Mike. I know you all film. Can we bring Daryl in right now when we talk a little speed? I thought I would segue in when you talk about a man that played 20 years. He ran 4.2 when he came in and 4.1 when he left. It's a back, a cornerback. We got him waiting. Is it fast enough to bring him in, Mike, or what?
Actually, he's been in the room the whole time. He's been listening.
My man.
We just couldn't see him. He was that fast.
Now, Daryl, do you want to tell them about, they were talking about somebody getting caught. Did you want to tell them that when you caught Tony on Monday night, I was running right next to you?
Don't put that kind of pressure on him, Tony.
I would say you were, but Tony wasn't on our sideline. You know how you run down the side, but it was on their sideline. So we can't get away with that one.
Wait, one person already told me I got all my sacks when they had the second string in. So now you telling me I was running next to you on the sideline.
Yeah, you were running with me, down the sideline. You were the only one that knew I would catch it. I'll say that.
Hey, D, we got some people on. We got Jared Bell on, which you see him out there all the time with the USA
Jared Bell. Who's he with? Jared Bell.
Yeah, you remember the name. He used to be on the show until he used to be on the show, but he got too big for us. We couldn't afford it.
Hey, I know his wife, man. I make his wife slap him upside the head. He's all right. He's all right.
Are you all right? Okay, then we went to Pittsburgh, and we got a guy that he has his own show. He's had it about 10 years. Very knowledgeable, but for some reason, he feels like Washington can't beat Pittsburgh. Ty Miller, welcome in. This is Daryl Green. You guys meet each other. Hey, y'all can go at it right now.
Yeah, Daryl, I know you well from the Cowboy days. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, here's the deal. I'm just being honest with you. I thought that the Redskins NFC East would come down to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wait, hold your point right there. That's $10 you need to leave for our pot because you said Redskins.
Hey, listen,
I heard the bell go off. The bell went off.
Fans, do you see that we got Mr. Daryl Green here that owes us money? Okay, continue, please.
I'll pay my money, but I'm the only player in the NFL history of this team that played 20 seasons. I can have one slip up.
Okay,
you need a
mulligan. We can go with that.
I'm 20 years on the team, but I obviously I'm one who was a very advocate for the change of the name. But no. And now you messed up my thought. but I was saying that the NFC East, I was thinking it was going to come down to the Philadelphia Washington football team that last game, and they'll be playing to get the 6th win. So that's what I thought a long time ago. If you're thinking they're going to beat Pittsburgh, then hey, God bless you. Pittsburgh is 10-0, and they're a pretty solid team. This is a team where the Washington team could show people that, hey, man, you know what? We're really for real. You beat them, you really are for real. But there's nothing that we can say today. I don't care how y'all analyze it, that we could say. I guarantee you, when you start doing your pick'ems, ain't none of you guys gonna pick the Washington team.
Wait a minute. You go with matchups. And I look at this. You always go with the different matchup. You look at this defensive line for this Washington team, they can control a game. You look at the defense for Pittsburgh, if you can develop a running game, and see, that's where Washington has a problem. Guys tell me they need a consistent running game. That's the only way they can beat this team. Am I right?
Well, here's the deal. Let me just say one more thing. I'm very hard on our team. You know, we're diehards. This is our team, and I'm always hard on them. And until you really do something, they beat Philadelphia with a banged up offensive line, and they won this game with a banged up offensive line, meaning the opposite teams had banged up offensive lines. And the defensive line is incredible, but they're young and they are going to hopefully be our future. I'm not sure we're going to find out if they're going to be our present, but they definitely are our future that we're building on. But no, I'm still critical on them. And I say, hey, yeah, go out there and kick their butts. But no, I don't think most people are going to go in Vegas and bet on us. But the potential is there. But it's going to take a consistency because we won a game. Actually, we won back-to-back games for the first time, right? Mm-hmm. So we won back-to-back games for the first time on some pretty relatively crippled teams. And so that maybe that gets us going. And this would take us to the moon. I don't know that you sit here and talk about it. I think you're going to have to do it. And until I see it being done on a consistent basis, I said before, and they probably got mad at me, you know, because we got the 85 Bears coaches here. And I said, this isn't the 85 Bears. This is not the 85 Bears defense, but you got to continue to move toward becoming the 85 Bears. And until we do that and we do it consistently, we just have to take it 1 week at a time and see what you do and calculate them at the end of the day. Can we win the East? That's what Joe Gibbs always said. Let's win. He would say, win all of our home and win this conference. Let's do that. And, you know, hopefully it'll be more than 6 wins. Because
hey, Tony, let's stay with the defense right now.
Hold that thought right there, Donna. We're going to have to take a quick break because we're a little bit over. But I just wanted to say, and you know, we got to separate Milton now away from Daryl because he's mad because Daryl told the truth. And you know, and see, we on this show, ladies and gentlemen, we just like they say in the court, amicus curiae. In other words, we are friends of the court. We don't just say who we are for or against. Now, we got one person on here that he's really mad now because Daryl told the story. He ain't a friend of the court.
Well, he's a politician.
He's a witness. We'll be back in a moment.
Let me define diehard. Diehard equals homer. So Daryl said he's a diehard. I said I'm a homer. So that makes us relative. It does.
No homer. We'll be back in a moment.
Bye. We'll see y'all back in a minute.
Welcome back to the show. And as you can see, we've separated a couple of people. So what we will do is we'll start this set by asking a couple of questions that were given to us from some Geico employees. Since this is Geico Midway Show, Kim Jones have a question. All right, Donna, since this is maybe throwing somebody under the bus, I'll ask you this one first. There have been many questions raised about the culture in the locker room and within the organization since Ron Rivera has come on board as coach. Do the players and the employees of the organization think the culture has improved, stayed the same, or gotten worse?
No, Tony, this is one area that this Washington football team has improved on is the culture. When Ron Rivera came here and he said that he was changing this for the better, he definitely did that. He got the players in check. It's not about undisciplined team. This team is disciplined now. So the culture has changed for the better.
Now, Kim has another question, and the second one, Homer Jones, you can answer this one. Concerning injuries to the quarterbacks over the years, is there actually an issue with the field itself? Is there something that they aren't doing in strength and conditioning that other teams are doing? There have been a lot of major injuries going back to RG3, which we all know about that. Have they put any thought into what could be the cause that they are overlooking?
Well, Tony, I want to answer that from a Homer perspective. I've been on my soapbox about an offensive line intact that really goes a long way in helping to protect quarterbacks, more so than improprieties on the field. So I don't think it's so much that there isn't any attention given. I mean, it's a national football league team, professional team. So they're taking care of the facilities. I just think a lot of those injuries, and oftentimes they can be freak injuries, or it's a football game, and people get hit. And so I think in the arena of football, even for the quarterbacks, this year we've done pretty well as far as injuries go compared to what prior seasons have been. So I think we're doing a better job there. I truly do. But here's the Homer response. Let's make sure that we prepare an offensive line to pare back some of these injuries to our quarterbacks. That's my
Tony,
plan.
I'm gonna jump in and disagree with Milton right here.
Somebody's got to be thrown under the bus. I volunteer.
No, because I'm gonna tell, as far as it has been some issues with the practice field facilities and the one at FedEx Stadium. Ron Rivera talked about that earlier during the season, that some things had to change. He came in and changed the facility as far as the field because it was so beat up and was messed up. As far as FedEx Field, they made some changes there as far as the field because it was in bad shape. It's one area on that field that it seems like the quarterbacks keep getting hit, and it's the entry where the football team goes in, where Alex Smith got hurt. Other quarterbacks got hurt this year. So the field has been somewhat of a mess that it still needs to be improved a lot more.
Jared, I got a question for you, but Donna, have you heard anything on my case? I got hurt in IFK in '84. Have they settled that yet?
They about to tear it down.
Something was wrong with the field.
They about to tear it down.
Hey, as you look back, and Jared, you're doing a lot of traveling. Matter of fact, I know you got to get on a trip when we finish doing this show. And you're kind of worried because it's going to a team that the virus has kind of hit pretty hard, as well as what do you see around the NFL? Are you seeing more and more teams now that this virus is hitting? More and more people are becoming infected. More and more people are becoming at risk.
Well, it's interesting because I think the NFL has just kind of had its worst week with the COVID pandemic since this thing started. And it was a pretty bad week or two back in October as well, but you had over 40 players around the league go on the COVID list last week. Now, this all coincides with the surge that we've heard about and the numbers that we're hearing reported that are happening across the nation. So from that, standpoint, it's not a surprise that the NFL is seeing a rise in cases too. But the real interesting thing about covering the league this year, Tony, has been, the NFL really instigating its protocols, and not only implementing protocols, but also revising them along the way. The protocols now different than the protocols 2 weeks ago, and different than a month ago, 2 months ago. So they are constantly tweaking and revising their patterns and their procedures to try to deal with this. So you mentioned, my next game. I've had 9 games this year. So this will be the 10th, assuming that it gets played between the Ravens and the Steelers. And covering the league is so different now. Obviously, as most people know, there have been empty stadiums or very empty stadiums. Some cases, like in Tampa, I've done like 3 games down in Tampa, excuse me, following Tom Brady and the Bucs, and they've had a limited amount of fans, like 15,000. But for the most part, empty stadiums have been the deal. From a media standpoint, we don't have access to the locker rooms anymore, at least not for this season because of the pandemic. So everything that's done in terms of your contact with the players and the interviews are done pretty much via Zoom. They have Zoom conferences. So I'm there after the game. I've got one team Zoom conference on my laptop, another Zoom conference from the other team on my cell phone, and trying to, cover a game. That's for the game day stuff. And then during the week, they have Zoom calls too. The one thing that you could try to do as an experienced reporter is to lean on some of your contacts for, players and coaches that you could reach out directly to, or you can have the team PR staffs try to line you up with interviews with players and whatnot. But it has been so different in trying to to cover the games like that. So, but the NFL has reduced the number of people in the press boxes. They have all kind of protocols there. I just got a thing from the Steelers making me sign the waiver that I'm not going to sue them if I come down with COVID from covering the game or whatever. You know, they've got social distancing in the press boxes. They have changed the way they serve, you know, meals, and they've taken a lot of measures too. They check your temperature before you go into the press box. So they've tried to, you know, expand their protocols to deal with the media as well, because, you know, anybody and everybody is a risk for spreading this thing. But I'd still rather go. I've had a couple, maybe 3 weeks this season where I've watched games on television at home and actually written columns off of them. But I'd still rather be there than to do it all on television. But it's been quite the challenge, man.
Well, I asked all of you guys, it seems like the product is starting to hurt a little bit when you talk about the brand and you're seeing players is playing like Denver the other day. What kind of game is that to have on where you do not even have a starting quarterback? And I think you have to make some adjustments there. And then the other things that's transpiring to me is you're getting certain players out, you're getting players back in. Are these players getting well? Why allow them to shake and hug and do everything at the end of the game when you are sweaty and you have been breathing hard and doing all this and you out there doing that? Why not they not send them right to the locker room?
Yeah. No, that's a great point, because people have definitely asked about that, and the league kind of got twisted by, you know, putting out the memo that, hey, these post-game interactions are disallowed, and it was basically ignored by so many of the players. So I think the league decided that it wasn't going to fight that particular element of it as much as it would fight other things. When you say, why are the Ravens even playing a game after having 20 guys on COVID? Why did the Broncos have to play a game when they had no quarterbacks? And it was really a form of punishment, because, you know, in both of these cases, with the Ravens and with the Broncos, things happen where people pretty much dismissed the protocols, right? So the Ravens strength coach, the guy who's in there when people are huffing and puffing, wasn't wearing a mask, took off his contact tracer, just pretty much defied the whole idea of the NFL pandemic protocols. And what we see, we always knew it was going to be a matter of personal responsibility, with people being able to adhere to the policies and try to deal with it as much as possible as you're getting tested every day. But for somebody on the coaching staff to just pretty much dismiss, you know, the protocols and decide they're going to run their weight room without regard to them, I mean, that's why the Ravens, you know, have had some spread. And I think the NFL is like, we're going to have no mercy on you. The Broncos had a situation where their number 3 quarterback, Jeff Driscoll, tested positive for COVID-19. And then the other 3 quarterbacks decided to have meetings, and in interviewing with the NFL was not forthcoming, didn't wear a mask. They too just pretty much dismissed the protocols like they know better and that they can not wear a mask because that's how they feel like operating. Well, guess what? Your team suffered for it. So I think there's a fine line in terms of when the NFL, which doesn't have as many windows now to put these other games in, fine line between that and you know, postponing games and rescheduling them and whatnot. And guess what? Everybody wants their paycheck. So that's kind of part of it too, because you can say, and there is some concern for health and safety. I mean, we know that, but there's also the concern for, you know, people trying to have the league trying to get these games in, because if nothing else, they're able to generate 60% of the revenues that they normally would during a season when you had, you know, if you had full stadiums. So it's been
fans, you have to realize 60% of that money is a lot of money. And when we come back, I have to ask Ty Bill a little bit, because the team that the Ravens are playing, Pittsburgh, have had their problems with the pandemic as well. And hopefully they'll be weak enough that the Washington team can just stomp them. We'll ask you when we come
I see that's wrong.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the show. And when I get done beating down Mike in a little while, y'all can enjoy the show, but I'm just playing. When we talking about right now looking around the league, and every time a few weeks ago, everybody thought they had the answer, which was the best team. Everybody thought Kansas City, Tampa Bay. They thought other teams. They thought that Seattle could be carried by one guy. They thought that the Ravens are ready to take another step. But as you guys look at that, the only team now that seems to be consistent and winning is your Pittsburgh team, Ty. But now what I'm looking around the league, and then you guys can enlighten me to this, and I'll start with you, Daryl. It seems like defensive backs, which have always been ultimately important because they have always been the last line of defense, but now they're asking them not just to be defensive backs and cover like Deion used to be. They're asking like you used to be. That's right. Deion was one of them played for the Cowboys. They don't cover nothing anyway. Oh, I'm sorry, Ty. But when you tell me a little bit, the defensive backs are changing in this league now, D. What do you see?
Tony, I don't know about the change, and I think the defensive backs have always been an important part of it, particularly cornerbacks, because you are the secondary aspect of the run game, you're secondary and you're primary of the pass game. So I don't know. I'm happy to see that they're doing their job. I think that you hadn't seen as much excitement at the secondary as you are seeing now, and I think it's just normal. I'm not calling it something great. I'm just calling it normal play. What they should be doing. One of y'all mentioned earlier about the tight ends. The tight ends over the last 5 to 8 years, with Gronk and different ones just became. Tight ends were nothing back in the day in terms of what they are now.
Right.
And so I would say that's a change, but everybody else in the game is pretty much doing what they should already be doing. And the defensive backs, I don't see anything special. I don't know if I agree with you on that. If you want to say somebody is special, I would say the tight ends were.
Okay, let's look around the league now, guys. What teams? Oh, I'm sorry, D. Okay, what team do you guys look at now? Kansas City, to me, they're winning games, but they're squeaking by. We've seen the propensity for the Tampa Bay team. They're not really all on the same page yet. Seattle is being run by one guy. The defense is kind of weak. I'm going to tell you what, if San Francisco did not have the injuries they had, they would be my number one team. These guys are playing well, even though they've lost major people. So now you guys tell me and explain it any way you want. We got about 5 minutes. Who do you see as being the front runners, and who do you see on each division could win it?
It's not San Francisco for sure, Tony.
Oh, I know that, Donnie. I knew you would come after them because
but no, Tony. In the NFC West, you got to look at the Rams in Seattle. That race is up for grabs.
The Rams, really?
The Rams in Seattle. That race is close. It's up for grabs. You look at the NFC South. The Saints is running away with that. We already talked about the NFC East and the NFC North. The Packers pretty much is going to pull that one out. You go to the AFC East. You got the Colts. The Bills. The Bills to me is running away with that one. The AFC South. The Colts and the Titans. That one's going to be interesting with that game against that they went up against the Colts and the Titans, which Henry just exploded. It was like a one-man wrecking show. So that could be up for grabs. And then you talk about Seattle. Seattle is not Seattle, but you talk about Kansas City. Kansas City has proven each week they've got what it takes to come back against whoever they're going to play against. So I look like Jared said at the beginning, I'm looking at Kansas City being right there, Pittsburgh being right there, and then over in the other division, to me, it's not as strong. You look at the Rams or Seattle or the Saints. Those are the picks that I look at.
Ty, tell me about Pittsburgh. I know they've had the sickness, and I know you're hoping that doesn't come into play. That seems to be the only thing that could stop them right now.
But Tony, again, I want to say this to you about Pittsburgh. I cover Pittsburgh. I'm not a homer as it would be because I view myself as someone on the outside looking in. But the Steelers will be there deep into the playoffs. I actually don't see them winning the Super Bowl because I really think it's what's going to hurt them in the end. I think sometimes not having played top caliber quarterbacks might come back to haunt them in the end with this defense because they have had some situations where they have played some backups. Now, I want to throw some fly in the ointment right here quickly about the NFC East. Don't forget about Philadelphia. Only because They have the quarterback, the best quarterback in that division right now, if he can just get rid of the ball. Now, I don't think they'll beat Seattle, but don't discount that Philadelphia can come back and win the NFC East.
No, let me say this. Let me discount Philadelphia, okay? Because they do not have the best quarterback in the division, and their offensive line is a mess. The one thing I like about Philly is the defensive line, and they kind of have that mentality that, they won't quit. So I'll give them that. But let me just throw a couple teams out at you. Donna, you mentioned Tennessee, and I don't think it's neck and neck with Indianapolis anymore. I think the Titans are, on a roll right now. The other thing, Seattle, we talk about their defense, but two things have happened with the defense, and it might be enough to get them to the point that they can really compete to maybe go to the Super Bowl. And that's Jamal Adams coming back off an injury, all-pro safety, awesome DB, who can do it on all three levels. And then Carlos Dunlap, defensive end, who they acquired in a trade, and he's given them a little bit of a pass rush. So a couple tweaks here and there might be really significant for them. Two teams that are down right now that I think you still have to look out for because they will have winnable games in December. Baltimore, as bad as it is right now, and Tampa Bay, as bad as it looks right now. If you look at their schedules, they should beat everybody along the way, besides, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, after that, throughout December. So they will be favored to win those games. And oh, by the way, the Cleveland Browns will make the playoffs. And with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, 1-2 punch at running back, which is what you want this time of year, the Browns are going to go to the playoffs for the first time since 2002. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go deep into the playoffs, but, you take your step where you can get it.
There you go. And I tell you what, they are a pretty good team. They lost some good people. But when we come back for this last segment, ladies and gentlemen and fans, we will be talking about who we think are the winners or who may go to the Super Bowl. Now, I got to talk a little bit more to Darryl Green because, he may have some insight about that Washington team we don't know. No, he don't. We'll be back in a minute.
He does.
Well, welcome back. We got about 6 minutes to wrap this show up, guys. And you've given them a lot of information. First, I want to ask you before we go any further, have all of you been safe during this pandemic? Are you doing the things you need to do? It's up to each and every one of us to do what we need to do to help this. This is not going to be done by no one person, no one country. It's going to be done by the world if we want to get out of this. So you guys stay safe. Do whatever they say. It may seem like it's nugatory right now, but it's something we need. Let's start looking around the league. We're not even going, are we going to do the picks this week, Donna? You want to get that out of the way?
Yes, Tony, I can just quickly say that
we've been having too many recalls and revotes. And
that was because I wasn't in control. So last week, you and I went 3-2. Gary went 2-3. Milt went 1-4. Mike went 2-3. Gary still leads the picks by 1. You and I are right behind him. And Milton and Mike, they're somewhere at the bottom.
Donna, you don't have to shake your head when you give out scores. You shake your head.
Wait, Bill.
Hey, look,
I hear anger in your voice?
No. She telling you can't bring a homer down. It doesn't matter if it's.
I hear anger in your voice? Okay, guys, let's look at this. And we'll get a chance to finish speaking of this a little further next week, maybe, if all of us come back. What do you see right now if you were looking at the playoffs? Give me your favorites and tell me why. I got 2 questions. We got about 5 minutes. First, tell me what you think the Washington team needs to do to win this game. I know, Ty, I won't get it out of you, but just tell me what you think they can win. Each of you, keep it real short for me. Start with you, Homer.
Well, Homer.
Well, Ty said earlier, I think if we could develop a running game, and our history is of the last 4 or 5 weeks, we like to run between the tackles. So if we can, and I know they're a little bit stout in that middle, we can develop a running game that would explore those between the tackle runs and clock control, ball control. I think that will prove a victory for the Washington football team. Let me say, you heard it here first. I believe Washington will win this game. I truly do.
Okay, Donna.
They just have to start off fast, Tony, like they did in the last 2 games, and the defense has to be strong for 60 minutes, but just starting off strong in the beginning of the game and play 60 minutes full game.
D Green.
The historic Washington team has always been a balanced team, including special teams. But on top of that, they've always had to be a team that play, penalty free. So they've got, this team is young. They're led by their defense, and then they got to be smart. Play defense and be smart, and then the offense can get the advantages that being smart and the defense can give them. That's the only chance they're going to have.
Ty.
If Washington is to win this game, they have to get in the face of Ben Roethlisberger. They have to keep him in the pockets to get their hands up, and they have to put pressure on him consistently. If they do that, because no one has done it consistently this year, if they do that to the Steelers, that will throw their timing offense off, and the Redskins, well, ring the bell, the Washington football team will have a chance to upset the Steelers.
Yeah. Did y'all see how hard he was trying not to laugh while he was saying that? I know him. I'd have worked with him. He wanted to laugh. Hey,
Tony looked like he was reading a chart. Look.
Right. JB, give me what you think, man.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way he broke it down, because the defensive line for Washington, and as Daryl mentioned earlier, being the future to build this team around, yeah, that gives you a shot, so a puncher's chance, right? But I think in the end, it will be a reality check. It'll be the kind of game that you'll say, if they play well and make it close and compete, you'll say, okay, this team, hung with the team with the best record in the NFL. But
Jerry, I got a question to ask you. I only got a minute left, so I guess I'll ask you. I got some questions on the Black 14 that I want to ask you next time you're on, because you did a report on them. But if you could come back for us next week, we'd love to have you on, man. We're gonna have Joe Green on there, and I do want some commentary from other people other than these people that telling me I'm wrong every week. D Green, if you can, and
you got Joe Green. You got Joe Green on next week. You got Joe Green on next week.
Yeah.
That's Joe Green. I'll come on with Joe Green. He has an E on the end of his name, which kind of throws it off. But
I was going to ask you, is there any relationship or anything we need to talk about?
I've talked to him about that, and we'll cover that. We'll cover that.
Okay. Hey, Ty.
Tony, Daryl's a little touchy about that relationship thing.
I know.
Hey, man, look.
But Ty, you coming back with us next week? Ty,
I'll be back with you.
You was with us for a long time. You're going to be doing throughout the year, correct?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Well, you're going to have to get a better attitude. Don't be telling us about Pittsburgh going to win. You on a Washington show now, and govern yourself accordingly, unless we're going to get new personnel in that seat.
Well, 2 wins over Dallas, and y'all are so hyped, man. That was Dallas, a bad Dallas team this year.
That's your team.
Hey, we were win-starved, man. We needed something to happen.
Well, guys, been a good show. And, next week when we come back, we'll make it even better. But one thing about it, we talked about the Washington Redskins, and we know, I give them some money. At the same time, the Washington team has shown improvement. And we do know 2 or 3 games that they could have won, but I think they were building character. When we look at the season going forward, no matter what happens, if they have a chance to get in the playoffs and they do it, they've accomplished something. But right now, they've accomplished getting better, and that's what we all see. And saying that, that's what we need to do each and every day with the pandemic and when it's not a pandemic. Work to be together, be better. Don't be the same as when you got up in the morning. Try to be better when you go to bed at night. Hey, one thing we never say on this show is we never say goodbye. And not at all the people coming back next week, you'll know who's not here because they didn't say the right thing during the course of the week. So what we'll say is in the minute.